So originally this video was supposed to air before my Lord Logos video. However, I saw a lot of rumors flying around that people were saying that Lord Logos was alive Artoria, that she was Fate Ride Artoria, that she was Peak Artoria. Now I'm not going to argue that a Peak Artoria in Saber container would look like her. However, she still lacks something that would make her Peak Artoria, and that is something that Alive Artoria had. At the end of my second video, technically my first video, I said that I wanted to create a series about how strong servants were in their lore or during their lifetime. Well, this is the beginning of that series. Since this is the beginning, I think it is only appropriate that we start with the face of the series, the character that is the most popular and most well known. Saber. What the fuck? Artoria Pendragon. Fair warning before we get into this video is going to spoil the following works: Garden of Avalon, Fate/Standard Visual Novel, The Adventures of Lord Elmiloy, 2nd, and Fate/Grand Order Singularity 6 story. Another thing that I want to get out of the way right now is that I'm not going to talk about her feats or anything like that. I'm just going to be looking at the papers and telling you, hey, on paper, Artoria possesses this ability that is tied to this noble phantasm or that is tied to this skill of hers. Even if she has used it or she has not, doesn't change the fact that it still exists. And I'm going to prove that it exists and she knows about it to some extent. With that being said, let's get into her first ability. Her first ability, her magic core, also known as Dragon Core or Dragon Reactor Core. You see, Artoria is technically a man-made child between a human and a dragon. Merlin used a magecraft known as conceptual fertilization on Igraine to put the concept of the red dragon that protects Britain on her womb, in an effort that the next time Uther nutted in her, the child that would be born would be a child of a human and a dragon. This allowed Artoria to have the magic circuits and magical energy of dragons. Now, dragons are at the pinnacle of phantasmal beasts. Phantasmal beasts are basically all non-human creatures that appear in fantasy and legends. This includes magical beasts, phantasmal beasts, and divine beasts, and dragons exist in all three categories. Artoria is the incarnation of the red dragon that protects Britain, otherwise also known as Albion. According to Da Vinci, this dude is like the grand of all dragons because he existed for 4.6 billion years, making him almost as old as Earth. And Artoria being its reincarnation should tell you how much energy she has and what her output would be. We don't have an exact number on it. However, we can look around to find somewhat of a justifiable number. In Saber Alter's Bond 10 CE, mind you that Saber Alter and Saber are the same for the most part, except one is corrupted by the Grail and doesn't hold back and has worst instincts. Saber Alter and Saber's Dragon Core is not that much different, because had it been different, Saber Alter's mana burst would have been affected by it. This shows that both of their magic core is the same. Besides, like I said before, her magic core or Dragon Reactor Core are literal magic circuits. So unless until you're saying that being altered increases Saber Alter's magic circuits, which it definitely does not, you are making an ill argument basically, because being altered does not increase one's magic circuits. Now where were we? Oh yes, Saber Alter's Bond 10 CE. It mentions that her heart is forged from the concept of dragons. Its magical energy can rival that of Earth's own core. Pulsing with the dragon's roar, the king shall bring down the sword of the planet. The sacred sword is crowned the strongest because of the power of its wielder. Now, there is no clear answer to how much magical energy she has, whether they're talking about Earth's energy in joules or what is it. However, if we take the literal translation from Japanese of the CE, it says that her magical energy is comparable to heat energy of Earth's own core. However, Agravane, I think it was Agravane, compared her to literal gods when it came to her magic energy and its output. And we know that divine spirits are at the pinnacle when it comes to magic capacity and magical output. In Lord Logos's Finis Dracon skill, however, it is literally mentioned that her magic energy is near infinite. So technically, when she was alive, it is possible that she generated a lot of mana, and she didn't even have to worry about running out of mana because of one of her noble phantasms that we'll discuss next. Now, her Dragon Core allows her access to another skill. That skill being Mana Burst. Mana Burst is a skill that allows her to imbue magical energy into her weapons, armors, and even her body to increase her attack, defense, and agility. It can also cause literal explosions, as mentioned by Shiro when she was fighting with Lancer, that each blow had a minor explosion. However, Saber Alter takes this to the next level. Instead of holding back, she goes all out. Now this was also shown in the Fate/Tenet visual novel, however it was not literally said, which is why I think people just glossed over it and assumed that she never used it in the original work, even though she does use it. It was first shown to be used in Fate/Unlimited Codes, where she just uses it as a propulsion jet, literally firing off magical energy left, right, and center. She juggles her opponent with a move called Hammer of the Wild King. This move makes a return in the Fate/Stay Night Heavensfield movies and also in Fate/Grand Order. Next up, we can talk about her second skill, Instincts. Now this is an ability that Artoria possessed even when she was alive, because she was the only person who was able to react to Warnigger's attack when he suddenly transformed into a dragon. Gawain, who is one of Artoria's strongest knights, was not able to do so, and were it not for Artoria, he would have died there. It is ranked at A, and is an ability that allows Artoria, in simple terms, to use her sixth sense that is borderline close to predicting the future to aid in fighting. In longer terms, it tells her what is the best personal course of action during combat. Now this is an innate ability, so she doesn't have to activate it. She also doesn't have to work or train hard for it to achieve it or to make it better. It just exists. Next up, her charisma skill that is more tied to her role as a king than something being used for personal combat. It basically means that she is suited to be a king of a country at B rank, which is what her skill is at, and that her subjects and knights or army is more prone to listen to her and be motivated by her, all that jazz and stuff. Basically, it is an innate ability to command a country and army. That is charisma. Lastly, we come to her noble phantasms, and this is where shit is going to hit the fan. Since we are talking about Alive Artoria, I'll be mentioning all of her noble phantasms that have been confirmed in Fate so far. We have Caliburn, Excalibur, Avalon, Rhongomyniad, Myrmidons, Skace, Carvinan, Clarent, Pridewind, Gwaswit, Gwyn, and Invisible Air. Now, there are some noble phantasms here that are very well known and some that we know very little about, and we are going to be discussing all of them one by one. Starting with Caliburn, it was a sword that started it all, the sword of selection, the sword set in stone, the sword that chooses a king. Caliburn was used by Merlin in an effort to open people to accepting Artoria as a king and to give her a pathway to become one. It is not meant for combat, which is why it is decorated with many ornaments and stuff. When wielded by a king, which Artoria was, its rank increased. Couple this with her magical energy and mana burst skill meant that she can launch a blast that rivals a sealed Excalibur. Although this comes at a cost, it will break Caliburn because it cannot handle Artoria's magical energy. Again, literally pointing to the fact that her magical energy is so strong and too much for a sword to handle that unless until it is a divine construct, it is not going to handle it being wielded by her. Now, although we can't see Caliburn in a Holy Grail War anymore, we saw a traced version of it, an illusion created by Shiro, defeat Hercules in the Fate round, killing him 6 times in the visual novel and 7 times in the anime, with one strike. The sword was lost during Artoria's travel due to a trap laid by Morgan. The sword's durability was reduced because Artoria did something unfit for her knight. Basically, she did some kind of an unchivalrous action which caused it to break. After Caliburn broke, Merlin, being the womanizer he is, got Artoria, Excalibur, and Avalon from the Lady of the Light. Now, Excalibur in Fate is a sword that was forged in 12,000 BC to fend off a massive threat. It was created by the 6 Bells, high fairies who were tasked with making the sword. It was made in the deepest part of the planet, in the inner seas, in the reverse side of the world, thus making it a divine construct. After it was used against the aforementioned threat, it was given to the fairies to be safeguarded, which is why Excalibur doesn't show up in any myth besides King Arthur's, even though it was created in 12,000 BC. In simpler terms, that is before Gilgamesh was even born, and which is also why it is not available in Gate of Babylon, because it was not something Gilgamesh could or can get his hands on, since at the end of Battle of Camelon, Artoria asks Bedivere to return the sword back to the Lady of the Lake. However, Gilgamesh might still have a weapon that does the same thing as Excalibur, basically acts as a magic amplifying sword. Now, on the surface, Excalibur seems like a normal sword. If nothing else, it looks great and well crafted. In fact, so well crafted that the word beautiful will only sully it. It can convert its user's magical energy into heat and light, thus making it a mana accelerating sword. It was used against the White Titan when it was forged. The White Titan is a being beyond the planets, by the way, beyond the stars, beyond this universe. It had absolute bullshit defenses, like any attack that had mana in it would get absorbed. Even pure mana or life energy could only briefly injure it, only for it to heal nearly in an instant. Nothing worked against this being except Excalibur. Excalibur was also used against another alien, These aliens, by the way, again, as I'm mentioning, are beyond human comprehension. However, Excalibur took them down. Since it is a conceptual weapon and a divine construct, it is also beyond human comprehension in a sense. Really, it is bullshit fighting bullshit, because we don't really have a solid answer how Excalibur can bypass the bullshit that these aliens have, except that it's the sword that protects the planet, or it is the breath of the planet. Even the whole it is powered and given mana by the planet against outer threats would not explain how it can bypass defenses literally meant for mana, odd, prana, and other stuff. After spending some time with Excalibur, the power difference between Caliburn and Excalibur, Artoria along with Merlin and the Round Table decided to put 13 restraints on Excalibur. These restraints are mentioned in Fate's Stay Night, Fate Grand Order, under different names such as Oaths, Boundary Fields, Seals, Restraints. In Fate/Stay Night, Artoria had only removed a single restraint, as evident by her profile from Fate/Grand Order, where her Excalibur is originally ranked at A, but after she removes a restraint in her interlude, it becomes A++. Its classification, however, remains the same. Now, Artoria can remove these restraints, but unlike Arthur, who has to utter the words Seal 13 Decision Stored, Artoria has to complete certain trials, as we can see in Fate/Grand Order Interlude. This is an advantage and a disadvantage for both Arthur and Artoria. You see, Arthur can remove the seals at any time, but his Excalibur regresses back to its absolute sealed state soon after. Artoria's Excalibur is different in this regard. Her seals are difficult to remove as shown by Fate/Grand Order, but they remain removed until the task at hand is fulfilled. So say Artoria is summoned in a Holy Grail War and starts the trial to remove her restraints. She removed 4 of them, while throughout the war, those 4 restraints will be removed and not get reinstated. However, for Arthur, it is the opposite. His seals are easier to remove, but will get reinstated. At least, that is my interpretation of it. We still don't have enough information on how Artoria's restraints work. Now, removing these restraints unlock Excalibur's original power that is being stopped by them. At each level, more power is unleashed. It is possible that its rank will change, but the classification will remain the same as seen in the interlude of Fate Grand Order, and it is also possible that it might become an EX Anti-Fortress Noble Phantasm at 6 restraints removed. However, when 7 or more restraints are removed, it changes Excalibur drastically. Not only will it go up in rank again, but it will also raise up in classification. We know the rank and classification of Arthur's Excalibur at 7 or more restraints removed, which is EX and question mark. But for Artoria, we don't know because she never removed more than 1 restraint in Fate. However, it is possible that it is going to be similar because it did beat 2 bullshit aliens who are technically more strong than a beast. Before I move on to Avalon, the last thing about Excalibur that we need to discuss is its durability. Like I mentioned before, it is a conceptual weapon, so words like degradation does not exist to be associated with it. What do I mean by that? It is basically indestructible. It is compared to Roland's, Hector's, Medicarder's Durandal when it comes to durability, and Durandal is a sword whose whole stick is being indestructible, and it is being compared with Excalibur. Mind you, Excalibur is not being compared with Durandal. Durandal is being compared with Excalibur, showing that Excalibur is indeed unbreakable. Next up, let's talk about Avalon. Avalon is the scabbard of Excalibur. It provides its user with insane healing and mana, even as Saber Artoria was able to use Excalibur more than 2 times in Fate Route under Shiro. For context, even though she got her Dragon Core working in Fate Route, she didn't have that much fuel in her, and even under Rin, she can only manage 2 Excalibur blasts before she disappears. In Fate Round, she uses Excalibur 4 to 5 times against Gilgamesh. Avalon can heal destroyed organs including the heart, but can't regenerate a destroyed brain. However, Avalon's greatest strength and ability makes it so that you don't even have to worry about getting hurt in the first place. Avalon can and will only work with Artoria's mana, so if you have a contract with her, it will heal your injuries. When its true name is called, Avalon dissipates into tiny particles and shield its bearer. It becomes the ultimate defense, the impenetrable moving fortress. It shuts down all kinds of attack, including ones from true magic itself, which if you don't know, true magics are busted as hell in Fate. We only know what the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th magic is. The 2nd magic is parallel world bullshit, 3rd is soul manipulation bullshit, and 5th, we don't know what its domain is as in its true power or function, but we do know that as a byproduct, it can mess with time. So Avalon can protect you from parallel world stuff, time, and soul bullshit. Also, it can protect you against status ailments and can also resist the curses from the Grail Mud, which I am going to count as a status ailment. It was so good at what it did that it even shocked Gilgamesh when she defended against Ea using Avalon. Lastly, its durability. Just like Excalibur is not an issue, it is indestructible because it is also a conceptual weapon, and while it is not explicitly mentioned, it might also be a divine construct as well, because Excalibur and Avalon are a pair. Next up, we can talk about Rhongomyniad, which I'm going to call Ron from here on out because I'm lazy as hell and I don't want to write Rhongomyniad every time I brought up Ron in this script, which you will see is going to be a decent amount. Ron was given to Artoria by Merlin as well, as she asks Merlin why she was given Ron when Merlin explained the powers of Ron to her in Garden of Avalon. Ron is the pillar of light that shines till the ends of the world, or to be more specific, wherever Ron is becomes the place at the ends of the world. Merlin told Artoria that Ron is the pillar of light that is holding, or rather binding, our texture in place. It serves as an anchor that holds our texture in place to prevent it from being removed. It acts like a seal for the reverse side of the world, preventing many phantasmal beasts or beings from coming over into our texture. Artoria was given authority over said pillar because she was stuck in between two ages. She was a human and a dragon. She was both a remnant of Age of God, and she was also a possibility of what was to come, Age of Man. So she was given authority over this pillar. This also means that Ron technically is not a lance but an authority, so she can shapeshift it into different things like a sword, lance, umbrella, a freaking ship, a freaking city, you name it. Ron consists of two parts, the inner part or light and the outer shell. The outer shell can be used to create construct and stuff as well. Goddess Rhongomyniad used it to create the Hollow City in Camelot Singularity. Mind you, these abilities are not just limited to Goddess Rhongomyniad. Merlin explained the functionality of both the Holy Lance and Holy Sword to Artoria, so it is possible that alive Artoria knew about these things, and Saber can use it too. What makes Goddess Rhongomyniad special is that she was alive for 1,000 years or more, and thus due to Ron, her Saint Graph was changed into that of a divine spirit, giving her more mana and bullshit. Ron has two primary abilities, an attack and the other one we'll discuss later. The first, as I mentioned before, is an attack that we see the most. It was used by both Goddess Rhongomyniad and Artoria against Warninger, a giant nuke from the sky. Now this nuke is a physical object due to its nature, thus it is a slower attack. But there is a faster version of it where Artoria can fire lasers that are much faster. This is the attack that was unraveled by Arish's Stella. The second ability and the main function of Rhongomyniad is known as Rhongomyniad Mythos. This is a seal that can seal away mystery itself. It pins down mystery, making sure none of it leaks out. A broken seal even by Age of God standard, so much so that if you wanted to remove it, you would need outside help. You can't remove it yourself. Sound familiar? Well, remember that we were talking about textures before? Yeah, that is this ability probably. This ability was used by Grey in The Adventures of Lord Elmiloy, Chapter 2, Volume 6. And is an ability that Merlin was talking about with Artoria in Garden of Avalon when he says that you are given authority over this texture and all these kinds of things. Since our texture is pinned by Ron, Artoria having authority over Ron has authority over the texture. The texture has everything associated with it, time, laws, gravity, etc. Basically, it is our reality. So yeah, we should be thankful that it is given to Artoria and not someone else, because Artoria can remove our texture at any time. Merlin even asks Artoria that how does it feel to be God, and Artoria gets scared and asks why was she given so much power, and even asked Merlin to take it away, only to come to the realization that this is Merlin she was speaking with, and she is risking the whole world by giving Ron over to him, as he would just stick it in a rock and ask people to pull it to become heroes or something for his entertainment. Now Rhongomyniad also has 13 restraints of the round table. This is where another difference comes into play. Artoria's Rhongomyniad has the same seal removal system as Proto-Excalibur or Arthur's Excalibur. So she has to utter the words Seal 13, Decision Start, and the seals are removed if the conditions are met, making the system different from Excalibur. Although I couldn't find anything officially on this, the fandom assumes that Arthur's Rhongomyniad will have the trial system of Artoria's Excalibur, but that is just a speculation. Rhongomyniad was the reason why Artoria was called King of Storms, storms referring to lightning, which refers to the Wild Hunt, which is also why she is known as King of the Wild Hunt and fairies or spirits. Lastly, its durability. The outer shell of Ron is quite durable, but definitely not indestructible. It was able to withstand multiple blasts from Ozymandias' bulb thingy, and was still standing after he rammed his pyramid into the Holy City. which as mentioned before was made using the outer shell. However, the light or Rhon itself is possibly indestructible as well, as it is also a divine construct. Now Excalibur and Rhon are powerful noble phantasms, as I have hopefully shown, but all these powers mean nothing because Artoria has gone on record and said that she will not use them to fight barbarians, and she has gone multiple times in battle and didn't use Excalibur or Rhon to their fullest. Maybe it could be due to the different authors or whatever reason. In real life, however, in universe, Artoria's reasoning is that the noble phantasms are too powerful, thus she is not going to use them at their fullest, which is also why she put restraints on these two noble phantasms. It is also possible that in a normal Holy Grail war, she just doesn't have the opportunity to remove the restraints of her Excalibur and Rhongomyniad. Next up, we have to talk about Myrmidos, a sword that originally belonged to Hercules. When Artoria went to war with a distant relative of Hercules, she took it as a spoil of war. It is strong in raw power when compared with Excalibur. Now we are not told if this is sealed Excalibur or unsealed Excalibur, but the comparison of Excalibur usually is in its sealed state, in a state that Artoria used it. So it might be stronger in raw power when it comes to a sealed Excalibur, because unsealed Excalibur for sure is not getting beat by this sword due to its showing in other Fate medias. Durability wise, it is probably up there with the most durable sword, but we don't have an exact statement about it. Saber used this sword when she gave Excalibur to Gawain, who probably gave his Galatine to Gareth. Artoria cannot actually bring out the full power of Myrmidos as well. She doesn't know how to use it at its fullest, but she does know how to get some functionality out of it, which is better than the descendant of Herc, who basically kept the sword as a showpiece. The next two weapons are the ones we know very little about, like there is almost no information available for both Scase and Rhongomyniad, but I will still lay down what I know. Scase was a short sword that Artoria had which could only be carried into mortal combat, in other words, a fight to death. Aside from that, the only thing we know about it is its rank, which is A, and its classification, which is anti-unit. We don't know anything about it other than this because we actually have not seen the sword itself in Fate. In Fate Grand Order, Summer Rider Artoria Alter, otherwise known as Maid Alter, uses it with Excalibur. She combines both Excalibur and Scase into a single sniper rifle. We don't know if this is just event bullshit or if Scase can actually change its shape and combine with other weapons. Personally, I doubt the combination thing. It is maybe just an event bullshit. In actual myths, this sword was used by Lancelot to battle with Saxon, so it is possible that Artoria gave it to him in Fate, though as mentioned before, we don't know much about it. And in another myth, it was also quoted to be a demonic sword that can channel demonic energy, but it being demonic is also not mentioned in Fate. However, it is shown to generate and fire energy, but since it is combined with Excalibur, we can't be for sure if it is actually Scase doing that or Excalibur. Going by this name release, it would be Scase, but again, take it with a grain of salt. Next up, Rhongomyniad, or however you fucking pronounce this name, is another weapon we know jack shite about. As mentioned before, it is not used by Artoria, or at least we have not seen it being used by Artoria on screen. Artoria Avalon uses Carnawain, the floating thingy behind her, but we don't know if that is like what actual Rhongomyniad looks or functions like. It is mentioned in MHX's profile as well. Besides this, the only thing we know about it is that it is Artoria used it against a witch, the only thing that was kept from the original myth regarding it, and that is it. We don't know its rank, classification, or anything. Next up, Clarent. Clarent was originally Artoria's sword that Mordred stole from Artoria's armory in Camelot when she was away in the mainlands. It is quoted being said that it is more dazzling than any silver, making it an ornate sword similar to Caliburn. In fact, it is a treasured sword as well, whose worth is equal, if not more, than Caliburn. It amplifies the authority of the king or the king's influence. So basically, if a king uses it, it raises their physical parameters and grants their charisma skill a raise. So Artoria's charisma will go up in rank from B to A. Clarent was originally a B rank sword that is given during the succession of kingship, which is why when Mordred stole this, none of this passed over to her due to her stealing it and not gaining it from Artoria, along with her acknowledgement. This also caused it to go down in rank to C. She also doesn't get any bonuses that Artoria would, as mentioned before. The sword's main ability is, as you might have guessed it, amplification. So you know what it means. Beam! Yeah, it can also fire beams. As a bonus fun fact, the demonic sword Florent, wielded by Roman leader Lucius Tiberius, I don't know, is the brother sword to Caliburn. Next up we have Pridewind. It is not a weapon but a treasure as well. A tool would be a better term actually. It can transform into a shield and a ship. Mordred also stole this when she got Caliburn from Artoria's armory. Pridewind doesn't have any official rank or classification in Fate. The classification and rank we see for Mordred is actually of her attack that serves as her noble phantasm. It is not a Pridewind thing. Next up, we can talk about Goshwit, which was a helmet that was passed down to Artoria from her dad. It allowed her to become invisible basically. And Gwen was the name of Artoria's mantle that also allowed her to become invisible. So both of these noble phantasm are actually similar to Hades' cap of invisibility that we see Gilgamesh use in Fate/Khaled Linear Prisma Ilia. Lastly, we have Invisible Air. It is a bounded field, a magecraft of sort that Merlin sort of provided to Artoria to allow her to participate in like Holy Grail wars or stuff like that. Basically, it allows her to manipulate air to some extent. She can fire this or use it to defend against something, propel herself. It is ranked at C and has the anti-unit type. This is how powerful alive Artoria was. Literally, you don't even have to give her the noble phantasm. Lore-wise, Artoria was busted due to just having Excalibur, Rhongomyniad, and Avalon, all three together. In fact, even in a servant container, if you were to give all these three noble phantasms to her, I am pretty sure she can easily win a war without any issue. But here's the thing, Artoria is not going to be summoned with all three of these things. It's not a servant container thing, it's not a class thing, it is basically because she's a living servant. Even in FGO, it is said that she is a special guardian and not a servant. In fact, it is said that she's a heroic spirit who can't be summoned normally, and it makes sense why that is the case, because she is just like Merlin. She is alive in Avalon and is healing her wounds to return when Britain needs her the most. Now I hope this video was telling you how strong Artoria is lore-wise. With the Rhongomyniad mythos, Avalon, Excalibur. With that being said, it's time to end this video. Do tell me who you guys want to see next up in this series. I'm personally thinking about Gilgamesh, but we can do Enkidu, we can do Arash, we can do literally anyone you guys want to see. So if you have any kind of request, do tell me and I will be making sure to research that person up. And with that being said and done, if you liked this video, consider giving it a like and subscribing for the future videos that are going to be in this series. Adios.